it seems to me the other major thing that's happened in our culture has been this postmodern shift, or this post-Christendom shift, or this post-something or post-everything shift. And it seems to me that that's been a very positive thing for the church. There's been anxiety about, we're losing the foundations, but it seems to me as churches we have a new opportunity to engage our culture in a way that we haven't been able to before. Certainly part of that is because the church is no longer the edifice that it once was, where it's the power broker in our cultures, whereas now many of the mainline churches have got a lot less power. And as Anabaptist Mennonites, we're then seeing that the role of the church is to be yeast, to be leaven within our cultures, and to find ways to not be the power brokers, but to be the weak, and to work from that place. So I think this move to a postmodern understanding, to question, to allow the questions to stay there, has been a good thing. But it's a scary thing for us, because many of our young adults and young people, like they're open, they're allowing those questions to sit there, and we're not quite sure. As leaders of the church, we've been taught to give specific answers. You got a question, I'll give you an answer. Whereas they're not necessarily looking for one answer. And I think what that's doing is helping us to go to the text again, to go to the scriptures, and recognize that there are multiple voices that the text gives us. And we can allow those voices to come and not have to synthesize them into one voice, but being allowed to say there are questions, and we can come to different conclusions on these questions and still be faithful, still read the scriptures in a way that trusts the Spirit to engage us. I do have a concern about our churches as we move into where the church no longer becomes a central part of people's lives, because we have to rethink what it means to be church together. And what we've done is we haven't figured that out very well. So we've still got the structure, we still meet on Sunday mornings, we still do things in a certain way, but that just ain't working anymore. But we haven't figured out what to do instead. I recall we had a few years ago, our lead conference was about listening to the youth, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And it was an interesting conversation. The young adults were sharing with us some of their visions, and then we broke up into table discussion groups. And so the discussion at our table, it was mostly folks my age or a bit older. We talked, we heard from them, there was a bit of conversation, and then one of the people in the group said, well, now that they've told us stuff, they need to listen to us so that we can tell them what they need to know. And it was this sense like, they didn't get it at all, like there's something else going on here with this new generation, with this younger generation, or with many in my generation, that there's something percolating, and the church is, we're afraid of it, and we're not willing to face it head on. So I'm hoping that we can continue to allow questions to sit there in our congregations. Not that we get stuck, or that we don't have answers that can point us in a direction, but to recognize that if God is God, then we can never figure out all the answers. But our place then is to point in directions we can go, and allow the questions to continue to guide us deeper into those places where God is calling us to. I'll stop there.
So,
I think there's another piece there.
What do you mean by the church, by what we're doing presently isn't working, or
right, yeah.
What parts of church aren't working? Because that's part of what's the shift has, or what's changed in the last 20 years, I would say, right? Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I know we're meeting with a group of young adults who are, a number of them are from our home congregation, but the things that they're saying are essential aren't a set of doctrines or principles or beliefs, but what's central for them is how do we behave? What does it look like to be in our communities, and who do we belong to? How do we belong to each other? How do we build community? That building community, being together, learning from each other, and then behaving in certain ways are much more important than believing. And so the belief piece certainly becomes less important for folks. And then there can be, the questions can sit there because it's not the primary thing. What's primary is, so what are you doing about, if you're following Jesus, what are you doing about what he's calling you to? And so I think that piece, we're still stuck in saying everything's about believing the proper thing. And we go back and figure out what we wrote down and say, well, you need to check off these things. Where the place we're moving to, folks are saying, well, what are you doing? And if we're not doing anything with what we believe, then I think we've lost that next generation. What that will look like in our churches, I don't know. But it's going to be different what we're doing now than what we're doing. And it's going to be scary for many of us. We have this sense that we want to give leadership and authority to younger folks, but many of us don't know what that means. When we're saying that, that's dangerous place to be, because the system is going to change. And I'm looking forward to that, because I think it is time for us to find some new ways to do things.